Hey, welcome in. Gabe DeArmond here with you on another episode of State of the Tigers, brought to you by James Carlton State Farm Insurance. This is our usually weekly show on PowerMizzou.com. We've taken a couple of weeks off simply because, hey, we got to take a couple weeks off at some time during the year. May tends to be a little bit slower, not quite as much going on as maybe a lot of the rest of the year. So we've been off for a couple weeks, but we are back this week. We're going to be weekly throughout the summer. We're now honestly only 6 weeks from SEC football media days down in Dallas. So we'll be getting into that. Basketball recruiting is going on. The kids are hitting campus. We'll talk all of those things, but wanted to take an opportunity to do something that may be a little bit different this week. Look, we know that there are some Missouri baseball fans out there, right? So we wanted to make sure that we take care of you guys. We've covered a lot of softball the last couple of weeks. The NCAA baseball tournament field was announced yesterday. Missouri obviously didn't make it year one under Kerrick Jackson, finished 23-32, finished 13th in the SEC. So a spot out of the SEC tournament in Hoover. Their season ended about a week and a half ago. But we wanted to grab this chance with Coach Jackson to spend about half hour, talk Missouri baseball, talked a little bit about last season, a little bit about, the future of the program, but really kind of a big picture conversation. First year coach at a program that honestly in the SEC, and coach, you'll hear Coach Jackson say it 2 or 3 times. This is a tough job. There are a lot of challenges here. So we wanted to talk to Coach about those challenges and about what realistic expectations are for Mizzou baseball, all that. So in just a second, I'm going to play my interview with Kerrick Jackson, but do want to remind you guys that this show every week is brought to you by our friend James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. If you live in Missouri or Illinois, he can take care of you, get you all set up with the best possible insurance rates. You can find James on the internet at carltoninsurance.net. He also has a Facebook page. You can give him a call. His office is 314-961-4800 during business hours. He's always going to have somebody there. Great team that works with James. He wants to take care of you. He wants to talk a little Mizzou sports with you, all of that. So we do encourage you to get in touch with James. And now we're going to let you hear from Mizzou baseball coach Kerrick Jackson. We are talking today with Missouri baseball coach Kerrick Jackson, just about a week and a half removed from the end of his first season at Mizzou. Coach, first off, thanks for joining us. And second, you jump right in. This is your first off season in Missouri. Before we get to the baseball, are you settled in and kind of feel comfortable with everything?
Yeah, I think we've gotten into routines. Family's good. Boys are enjoying school and have their little friends and whatnot. And so, yeah, from that standpoint, everything's good.
Yeah. Season ended, like I said, about a week and a half ago. I guess just kind of want to give you the floor. Your first year here, what did you think went well? What would you like to see get better? I mean, your overall assessment of year one.
A lot of ups and downs. I think we had some good moments. Unfortunately, our record didn't end up the way that we wanted it to be. And our biggest emphasis for our guys coming into this thing was let's just play good baseball. Don't worry about production. Don't worry about putting up numbers or getting hits and striking guys out and doing all that kind of stuff. Just go out and be consistent and play the game the way the game is supposed to be played. And, at any given time, we had 7 first-year players on the field, which in the SEC is unheard of. And so we had some growing pains with those guys, but they're talented kids with some upside. And so we figured, hey, where we were going to be this year and what we knew, what we thought we were going to be capable of, let's run those younger guys out there and allow them to grow up. And then with the understanding that now that they've been through the grind, coming back as sophomores and second-year players, they'll have a better feel for how they're going about it and what to expect. And so I think their eyes were wide open. We started conference play at Arkansas. And that is a definitely baptism to the SEC, being in that environment. So yeah, it was ups and downs. I think we grew as the year went on, but unfortunately, like I said, we didn't capitalize off some opportunities that presented themselves.
Did you come into, and I understand a lot of coaches maybe don't like to publicize this, but did you come into this with kind of an idea of what a realistic time frame for getting your program going and being at the level you want to be at? I mean, is there is it a 2-year plan, 3-year plan, and I know the transfer portal and everything has kind of changed what that time frame might be for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm pretty upfront and honest. And so one of the things I told our guys from the beginning is don't think that we're going to come in and win automatically. Winning, you have to understand how to win. You have to know how to win. You have to know what winning takes. And so we spent the year trying to get them to understand those things and the commitment and disciplines that it takes to put yourselves in a position to be able to have a chance to win games. And like I said, we benefited at times for that, and at times we didn't benefit from that. And so, yeah, coming in, I knew that it was going to take us some time to be able to, again, develop a culture that understands how we need to go about our business and who we need to be as a program. And so, like I said, we made steps and made some progress in making that happen.
Back when Missouri moved from the Big 12 to the SEC, everybody made such a huge deal of what it meant for football, right? And said, "Oh, Missouri's really diving into the deep end of the pool." I said, if you're diving into the deep end of the pool in football, you are like running into the ocean in baseball. Can you, I mean, just give people an idea? You mentioned starting at Arkansas, but there is no weekend off in this league. What's this conference like?
No, it is a beast. From the first weekend to the last weekend, like you said, I was here when we made that transition from the Big 12 to the SEC. We finished the last 2 years in the Big 12 championship game in the tournament. We won in 2012. And so coming into SEC, we changed some things that we were doing from a recruiting philosophy. One of the things I started when I knew we were making that move, I started to look and see where we needed to make some improvements that were different than how the Big 12 was played. And the biggest of those was arms, and specifically in the back end, and being able to put yourself in a position where you could roll guys out in the back end of the bullpen that were going to be able to shut the game down, because games in the SEC are won through the sixth through the ninth inning. Whoever plays 6, 7, 8, 9 the best, 9 times out of 10 is going to put themselves in a position to win. And like you said, there are no, regardless of what a team's record is, right? Look at our last, playing Auburn second to last weekend. They finished below us, but we end up losing 2 out of 3 to them. And so, this whole thing, Florida's in a regional, and we swept Florida. This thing is just a beast, and records are thrown out the window because at any given time you could take a loss to any team in our league.
I think the easiest way to describe it, and you can tell me if you think this statement is wrong, it is easier for an SEC team to win once you're in the NCAA tournament than it is to simply get to the NCAA tournament out of this league, just because you're facing so many teams week in and week out that block your path from getting there.
Yeah, I think there is some truth to that. I think the probably the one caveat is when you're playing at the end of the season, everybody's at their best, right? And so regardless of who's in your regional and everybody's got a number one. And like you said, with the way that the portal is, there's been guys and moving pieces around all year long. So somebody lucked up and got a guy that wasn't playing at a bigger school, and now he's gone to a mid-major school, and he gets that mid-major school, and he's a beast. The one thing we talk about all the time, we try to get our guys to understand, and the beauty of our game is we're not playing the game against the other team. You're playing the game against the game itself. You throw strikes, do you have quality at bats, do you play good defense? If you do that, then you just have to do it just as good, if not better, than the other team. And there's opportunities where it's mano-a-mano. It's the ninth inning, winning run at third base. Now it's pitcher versus hitter. Who's going to come out on top in that matchup? But the course of the game is about playing the game the right way. And yes, you are very battle tested when you play in this league, because you're basically playing 10 super regional weekends. I mean, that's how you got to look at it. And it's every weekend in SEC play is a super regional weekend. You got to get 2 out of 3. You want to put yourself in a position to come out of that weekend on top. And so that's how going through that. And then there's some times where there's some SEC fatigue in that, right? When you go through and you run off a bunch of weekends, the grind of winning at such a high clip can take a toll on your players and take a toll on your mentality. And so then when you get to the postseason, you do need that time to refresh and then be able to get yourself back in there and rejuvenated to make that march to Omaha.
I think, whenever Missouri fans talk baseball, I'm curious how much of your job is changing a mindset and maybe a culture around a program. And that's not saying anything about the coach who was here before you, but just you are in a league where there's a lot of places in this league where baseball is probably the second most, important, for lack of a better word, sport on campus. And so how much of your job is that kind of maybe focusing people on, hey, this is a sport that we really need to pay attention to and dedicate ourselves to in this conference?
Oh, without a doubt. I think when you look at the SEC, when we first got into the SEC, and obviously as long as you've been around, you know this to be true as well. At that time in 2013, SEC was a football, baseball, basketball conference. Basketball was, you had Florida and you had Kentucky, and that was kind of it. And Auburn was kind of starting to do some different things there, but really it was Florida and Kentucky. And so I think at Missouri, we felt good about going in and saying, okay, basketball, we're going to be in a good spot. Football, yeah, we have an opportunity to compete. It may take us a little bit to go. And obviously from a baseball standpoint, we knew we were behind a little bit, specifically when it comes to facilities and some of those things. But now the conference has morphed to a football, basketball, baseball conference, but I still think baseball is the second most visibility sport in the league. And so when you look at the investments that they're putting in, when you look at the crowds that they have at different places, you're exactly right. And people sometimes use the excuse, well, the problem for Missouri is you have the Cardinals and the Royals on either side of the state, and so that takes away. It's still a better experience coming to a college baseball game than it is going to a professional baseball game because you get to touch and feel the players. You can be excited about what's going on. Pro seasons are 162 game seasons, and so there's some lulls in there at time. And college baseball is a sprint. It's a 56 game sprint, and you're trying to do as best you can in those environments. And the fact that we are in the SEC and LSU was here, and Florida was here, and South Carolina was here, and so you're bringing in some teams that are high caliber and quality teams, so it becomes a good environment. So yes, that's the biggest thing that that I have to be able to do is let people know what we can be, and two, let's put some funding and resources into it to put us in a position to be competitive. We're never going to be the LSU's when it comes to that, but we don't have to be, right? We can be Missouri and find our pocket and be successful in that pocket and turn out a quality program year in and year out.
It's always a chicken and the egg discussion, right? Does the winning cause the commitment and the fans and all that, or do the fans and the commitment beget winning? I'm just curious, big picture, when you look at this program, like where do you think, what are the steps that you guys need to take to get to winning? And I'm not just talking about, hey, you need to pitch better, you need to hit better, but as a program, what are those things that you look at and say, this is where we can improve over what we've done lately?
We have to have the ability to develop players just as well as anybody else in the country. People talk about our stadium, and we don't need to have a stadium that rivals Arkansas's or LSU's or Ole Miss's or Mississippi State. But we do need to have developmental tools. We need to be able to recruit players here and say our ability to get you better is just as good here as it is anywhere else in the country. And as long as you have that, because then when you talk about the commonalities of all these places, from our mound to our plate is 60 feet 6 inches like everywhere else. From home to first is 90 feet. So those things, when you get on the field, the game of play is the game of play. But we do need to have those developmental tools. We do need to make sure that we're putting our kids in a good environment from a quality playing surface and those types of things. And what our stadium looks like is irrelevant to our success, because what I tell some of these guys when they talk about that, well, don't go play professional baseball then. If you need the Taj Mahals of the world for you to be successful, well, then you'll never make it to the big leagues because your stops along the way are not pretty. Once you get up to AA and AAA, that's different. But those lower levels and being at the complex, you're going to play complex games. Some of these guys are going to play complex games for 2 years, and there's going to be maybe 10 people in the stands. And the 10 people that are in the stands, 7 of those are going to be from your organization. So those things, are kind of, they're wants and not needs, but the needs is to be able to have the ability to develop players.
So you guys are getting into the off season. For fans who may not follow baseball recruiting like they do into some of the other sports, what is an off season like for you and your staff? I mean, what are you doing now? What will you be doing throughout the summer?
So this week, baseball's created a dead period. And basically, a dead period is so it went dead Memorial Day, and it'll last till June 3rd. No on campus or off campus recruiting. And so this week is kind of an organizational week because then once that things opens up and we can get out on the 4th, we hit the ground running. And then we've created some other dead periods in there around Father's Day weekend because who we are and who we are as men will drive and drive and drive and drive and keep pushing that envelope. So we created some shutdown periods for us to where guys have to be home, be home for Father's Day, be home with your family for 4th of July. So there's some breaks over the summer, but minus those breaks, you're out different tournaments, different, all across the country from Atlanta to here in Kansas City or St. Louis, down to Texas, all over the country. And then when you factor in the portal, now you're going out, and when some of these guys get in the portal, you want to add portal pieces. Well, now you're going to some of these collegiate summer leagues and evaluating players and seeing who fits and what your needs are in those situations. So the summer is a grind. That was when I left here in 2015. That was one of the reasons why we made the change. My wife, my boys were 3 and 2 at the time, and I spent about 100 or so nights on the road. And she's just like, this is way too much. We can't do this because the boys are too young. And so for me now as the head coach, remembering what that's like, I try and create some opportunities for our guys where I make them stay home. And I caution them to, when you're home, don't just be home, but be present. Because then that will allow us to do the things that we need to do, but then also allow you to keep your family intact and have a happy, when you go home, you're home. And when you're on the road, you're on the road.
Yeah, everybody knows the coach's job is hard. Not enough people know the coach's wife's job is really hard, right?
Yes, it is definitely like you said. There's not a lot of wives that get the credit that they do from the moves and organizing moves, and when we're on the road and 2 boys that are playing sports on different teams, and all those kind of things. It is a 24/7 job for them as well.
So there's basically 2 different types of recruiting now, like you just mentioned. When you go out as the Missouri head coach recruiting these high school kids, how much of the focus is this state, and you've got to keep the high level kids from whether it's Springfield, Kansas City, St. Louis at home, and how much of it? What are the other areas of the country that you look at as places you guys can capitalize in?
Yeah, the state is the number one focus, right? We have to lock the state down, and we know that's going to take some time. And but we see quality players that leave our state and go to other programs and have success. And so the one thing that we have to get them to understand is, specifically if you're in the SEC, we're in the SEC. So if you can go to University X and have success, then you can be here and have success. But then that goes back to what I just said about the ability to develop players. If we show them that your ability to develop here is the same as anywhere else, then you have no reason to leave. And then once you lock the state down, then you kind of go regionally. And regionally for me is any states that touch the state of Missouri. And so we know that we're going to be competitive in those areas with some of the other programs in the country. And then I think we look to go north at times. But being in the SEC, then at that point also allows you to recruit nationally. You can go to California. You can go wherever you want because we are the premier conference in the country, and this is where people want to be and where they want to play. And so if we're providing them an opportunity to do so, they're going to take that into consideration.
Then you mentioned the portal, and everybody knows what it's done in basketball and football recruiting, and especially in basketball, it's almost like it seems more important than recruiting high school kids. Now, in your sport, how much has the free transfer and NIL changed what recruiting is versus what it was 5 years ago, even?
Yeah, excuse me. It's changed it tremendously. I mean, you look at, like I said, we opened up with Arkansas this year. Arkansas had 7 transfers in their lineup. And you look across the board at some of these other institutions, and everybody's filled with kids from the transfer portal. And I think it's the gift and the curse. I think you find some good ones, but I think that once you get into that trap, if you will, of living in the portal, then you're constantly in that space because, look at LSU last year. They go in the portal, they win a national championship. This year, they started to string it together here at the end, but they struggled a little bit. So once you get those portal guys, if you lose them, then who are you replacing them with? Can you afford to place them with freshmen? Not in this league, you can't. So then you're going into the portal again. And so I think for us, we will use the portal, but we will use the portal to fill gaps. I don't want to use the portal to build our roster, because if we build our roster out of the portal, once those kids transition on, then what do you have after that? And so it'll be a combination for us. And like I said, we benefited this year from walking into a situation where we had some young kids that had the ability to play, that we were able to put them out there and play. And so now we can kind of start the cycle, if you will, of backfilling high school kids that ultimately have to wait their turn, right? Hey, this guy's playing, he's going to play for another year or so, then he's going to be a draft, he's going to be out, then it's going to be your turn, and we'll kind of fill that way. And then, when you have that specific need, an arm, a bat, a catcher, whatever it is, then I think you go into the portal and look to fill that. But I don't want to put us in a situation where we're jumping in the portal just to find the next best player. Because then I think that cuts our nose to spite our face with who we are specifically and where we're at. We have to be able to develop players and then add portal pieces on top of it.
With free transfers being a thing, is it still realistic, possible to do what you're talking about, to tell kids, hey, we want you to come here, but it's probably going to be year 2, year 3 before are kids still willing to do that?
I don't think there's a ton of them. I think there are some of them. The problem that happens with that, and like you said, with the ability to transfer place to place to place, is you're going to continue to find yourself looking for something, and there's a reason why somebody left the place that there's a hole for you to fill. Well, why did that person leave? What weren't they getting in that institution, in that situation? And so, yeah, it makes it tougher because now if you hold the kid accountable and you coach him hard, if he doesn't like that, well, then now they pick up and go someplace else. So it's really put us as coaches, it's put us in a bad spot because, again, now kids can leave just to leave. And there is no, we talked about the idea of what the commitment is and those types of things. Well, commitment now, when it comes to these student athletes, commitment is conditional, right? It's conditional upon where if it fits, and did they like the way that this went, and did they not like the way that this went, and that's one of the things we talk about to our guys all the time is commitment is not conditional, right? Commitment is commitment, and you outline what the commitment looks like and what you need from that, and then if both parties don't fit that, or one party doesn't fit what it is the arrangement was made prior to, then there's reason for change. But if it's just on the idea of, you know what, I thought I was going to play and I didn't. Well, again, if you go someplace else, what happens if you don't play there? And if you go someplace else, what happens if you don't play there? So yeah, it's a rough situation, and we've opened this Pandora's box, and it is what it is at this point. So we just got to figure out how to navigate it.
I want to finish up just with a couple specific to your roster. I would love to be able to say that I understand how many years of eligibility anyone has. I don't. So I'm just going to ask you, you mentioned all the young guys that you played this year. Who are some of the guys that you're looking at as, hey, these are the foundational guys for us. These are the guys that over the next 2, 3, 4 years, as we build this, these are guys we can build around.
Yeah, I think you first look at Jackson Lovich, and you look at the development that he had this year. Last year, played sparingly as a true freshman. This year, played just about every day minus injuries, and he really grew and developed not only as an individual and matured as a young man, but matured as a player and started to have a better understanding of who he is as a player. So he's a guy. He'll be a junior next year for us. Came in, played shortstop in high school, came in here as a third baseman. We had a need at first base. He started the year playing first base at us, banged his thumb up, wasn't able to catch. Once he was able to catch, we actually moved him to the outfield. So you got a 6'4", 6'5". He's 195, 200 pounds now. We want to get that up to put some more weight on him. But he's getting down the line from the right side of the 4-1-9. So we put him out in center field this year. And he took to it, like a duck in water. And so he's going to be one. I think you look at Caden Peer, who was a true freshman from St. Louis, left-handed hitter, played at CBC. Same thing, had some growing pains this year as a freshman, but another one who's really, really talented and has a high upside. Drew Culberson, who played shortstop basically for us all year, kind of fell into that. Matt Garcia coming into it was going to be our starting shortstop, has the hamate injury 2 weeks before our season starts. So he's out. We throw Drew out there, and he struggled offensively, but he got some really valuable time from a defensive perspective, and he started to make some transitions and improved as he was moving forward. Mateo Serna, another freshman catcher who caught for us a little bit, but at the end of the year was in the DH spot for us. Switch hitter with power potential from both sides of the plate. So he's really good. Jedier Hernandez, starting catcher for us. He's going to be a junior this year. Played a lot, transfer from Seton Hall. So I think we have some really, really good, interesting pieces that we'll be able to, from that position player side. On the pitching side, we had our freshmen struggled a little bit there, our younger guys. So those are some areas that we're looking to fill as we move forward. We got some young guys coming in this year that have high upsides. They're draft potential guys. So hopefully we get them and they end up on campus. But yeah, we're looking to do this from the youth standpoint and recruit athletic position players, competitive athletic strike throwers that put us in a position to play the game fast and play the game well.
That's another thing that coaches in a lot of sports don't have to deal with. I mean, you guys are dealing with the draft really on two ends, not only the kids on your own roster who could go, but recruiting is you want to recruit good players, but you don't want to recruit players that are too good because they never make it, right? So what are those few weeks like kind of waiting to see how that shakes out? And then do you almost have to go back and do another round of, okay, what do we need after that passes?
Yeah, I think you do. I think you kind of look at the guys, get feels from scouts from where they're at, get a feel from the families of what they're thinking, what their thought process is. When you talk about the college game changing, the pro game has also changed, and now it's a 20-round draft. So you're only talking 600 and some odd players drafted. Each organization only has 165 players in their minor league systems. And so, 20 in, 20 out. And so getting our guys to understand that as they're looking at the pro side of things, it is now a business decision. It's not a dream anymore. It's not this idea of, when we were kids, we'd do anything to play professional baseball. Now it's a business. And so now you have to go into it with a business mindset and what is in the best interest of your business being successful. And money is commitment. The more money that a pro team puts into you, the longer you have to go out and fail. If they put minimal money into you because there's a draft every year, if they draft John Smith, who's a sophomore or who's a shortstop and a high leverage shortstop and guy that's got power and potential and can run, well, they're drafting John Smith the next year and they're drafting John Smith the year after that. And they're drafting John Smith the year after that. And in a 4-year cycle, one of those guys is going to figure it out. They don't care who. They just know one of them is going to stick. And so then the other ones become collateral damage at that point. And so, getting guys to understand that. And then when you, like you said, being in the SEC, we're equivalent to, high A baseball in some lower end, at times, low end AA teams. And so getting our guys to understand what you're going to do here is going to give you that pace of play and understanding of how to play the game. And then when you look at guys that leave the SEC, and look at how fast their transitions are to the big leagues, right? We talk with our guys all the time about the difference between wanting to play pro ball or being big leaguers. And if you want to play pro ball, it doesn't matter what you sign for. You can come back home with the hat and T-shirt on and say, look at me, I'm a pro ball player. Or do you want to be a big leaguer and be a Max Scherzer or Kyle Gibson or an Ian Kinsler or some of these guys that are going to have long careers in the big leagues? Because none of those guys could probably tell you what they signed for. They can't tell you any of those types of things because their goal was to be a big leaguer.
Last thing for you, because I don't want to take your entire week at home here. A lot of people in your situation, you get hired a few months later, the athletic director that hired you is gone. A lot of people would say, man, that's a tough spot. Well, I think it probably worked out as well for you as it could because the replacement is the guy that hired you the last place. Just, how happy were you to see Laird here and what's your relationship like with him?
Oh, it was awesome. Like you said, I don't think it could have worked out any better for us. He and I have a really good relationship. At the time when I took the job at Memphis, I told him that Missouri was the only place I'd leave Memphis for. Because I really felt comfortable at Memphis. There was a high level of commitment from them on the baseball side. You were in a really fertile area when it came to recruiting baseball talent It's the weird place, as you kind of know, being in this region. They consider Memphis mid-South, right? Like it's not all the way in the South, but it's not in the North. So we were still in a good pocket there. And when this all transpired coming to Missouri, he and I talked, and he's like, "Hey, are they giving you everything that you need to be successful there? It's going to be a tough job." I said, "Yes." Talking to Desiree, I've told her the things that I think we need in the short term, and then the things that we'll need long term. And she's committed to those things. And he said, "Listen, I understand. Just like it's your dream job, it's my dream job as well." And so, he and I had that talk a year ago, right? And so then for it to come full circle for both of us, it couldn't be any better. And more than anything, I was really happy for him and his family and his wife Brandy and their son Drew and their daughters because I know how important this place was to them, just as important as it is to us and my family. So it was really cool.
All right. Well, Kerrick, appreciate you taking some time and enjoy your 6 days off and then getting back to it this summer.
Sounds good. I appreciate you as well.
All right. That is Mizzou head baseball coach Kerrick Jackson spending about half an hour with us. Again, just kind of look back on year one. But baseball at Missouri, the conversation is always, how do you compete in this league against some of these programs where, the hosting regionals and College World Series has been a pretty regular occurrence. So hopefully some good insight there from Coach Jackson, who is certainly one of the more insightful coaches on campus every time we have had a chance to talk to him. So coming up, hey, official visits start this weekend in football. We're going to get back on this show on a weekly basis, talking a little football recruiting. 6 weeks away from Media Day, 3 months away from the start of the season. So probably transition to a little bit more football, maybe a chance to talk to some of the players here over the summer. Not real sure where that's going to go, but want to welcome you guys back to State of the Tigers. Be back here every week now. James Carlton, State Farm Insurance is our presenting sponsor on this show every single week. Want to encourage you to get in touch with James at carltoninsurance.net. You can call him at 314-961-4800. James wants to do the best he can to take care of all your insurance needs and probably chat you up a little bit about Mizzou sports. I know James is fired up for the start of the season, as all you guys are in late August. So appreciate you joining us. We'll be back next week.